Bienvenidos a Taboo Talk Latina Edition. Yo soy Cynthia.
And I'm Jeanette. Y como siempre, we're here to host spaces for real, raw, and necessary conversations rooted in nuestra cultura, nuestras heridas y nuestra sanación. Today's conversation is one that takes courage, not just to speak, but to hold and to hear. We're talking about trauma, silence, and betrayal, and also about faith, resilience, and what it means to rebuild from the deepest pain.
Today's guest is a true representation of resilience, faith, and transformation. Anel De Castro is not just a designer. She's a survivor, a leader, and a fierce advocate for the voiceless. As a chairwoman of the Global Innovative Foundation, she's dedicated her life to raising awareness and fighting for victims of human trafficking and domestic violence. Chapters she's walked through herself. Originally from the Dominican Republic, she's turned her pain into purpose. Her powerful book, Gracefully Broken, Beautifully Healed, she shares her journey through sexual abuse, betrayal, and survival, breaking the silence around what too many suffer alone. Bienvenidas, Anel. We're so
Thank
happy
you.
to have
What an
you.
introduction. I'm so honored. Thank you so much for having me, ladies.
Welcome. I know. And I was telling Cynthia that I had the pleasure of meeting you in person at one of the events. And it was crazy how we just connected and you were sharing your story. And I remember getting goosebumps. And I felt this connection with you that I even told you, wait. Before you keep talking, I want to hear it all, but I want to have you. And I'm going to talk to Cynthia for Taboo Talk, Latina Edition, right? Because I feel that what you've been through, and everything you've done and what you're going through and what you've built because of the things that you've been through, it's something that needs to have a platform, right? That you need to continue to spread more awareness. And we want to hear your story, right? We want you to share what you feel in your heart that you want to share with us today. Like, who are you, where you come from, just your roots overall. Like, that would be such a pleasure to just hear that women that you are today that rise from those ashes of that once really hurt you, right? That I know you're still healing from, but everything that led you to who you are today.
Awesome. Yeah. And thank you so much. It was, I always go into an event and I'm in my car and I'm like, okay, God, whoever you want me to talk to, like give me a divine appointment, give me a divine appointment and let me know. Bring out the people that you want to talk to. And you were right at the front. You were greeting people at that event. And I saw you and I'm like, I remember saying hello and I walked past as I was saying hello to the host. And I'm like, I gotta talk to her. Like there was something about you that really stood out to me. And then we had that conversation. I had the same experience with you. Yeah, we didn't get to meet in person.
Soon.
Exactly. Soon through this, I hope for us to, we should at least drinks, right?
Yes.
So, Gracefully Broken, Beautifully Healed is a book that God really put in my heart to write. And I say this kind of as a joke, but it's true even to this day. I'm not a big journaler. So when God was like, yeah, you need to write a book, he gave me a vision. I was on my way to work. This was around 20 teen. You know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. In 2016, this is how this all came about. In 2016, I was in Iowa at a business conference, of all things, minding my own business. Right. Right. Like I'm like in a completely different mindset. And I'm sitting in this conference at an arena, like at a football arena, huge conference. And in the intercession, like the intermission, this man comes on stage with, it's just him and a microphone and a bar stool. And in the background, there is this black and white footage. I'm not really understanding what's happening. And I tune in to what he's saying. This guy, talking about how he used to work for the FBI. And one of the missions that really moved him and moved him into his purpose was the mission that they were showing in the background, the footage that they were showing in the background. And it was footage of children being kidnapped. And when I really tuned into what he was saying, something happened in my mind and I was jogged of a memory that I kept having. It was a nightmare that I kept having as a child into my adulthood, reoccurring. And it was in that moment that I understood that that was not a nightmare. That was a memory that my brain kept repeating for whatever reason. So because I had been having this reoccurring nightmare my entire life, it was very vivid in my mind. And so I'm going to share it with you. So I understood that what he was sharing with me or with us was exactly what had happened to me. This man happened to be Tim Ballard. So in 2016, I met Tim Ballard. After that, obviously, I went up to him. I said hello, and then I wasn't really understanding what had happened to me, but I knew that I had to say hello to him, and that was a very impressionable moment in my life of meeting Tim Ballard.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know Tim Ballard is the founder of Our, which is Underground Railroad. The movie The Sound of Freedom is based on his life, and he is the main character, right? So he has dedicated his life after that mission in Colombia where he rescued, I want to say, 25, 30 children. It marked him. He left his FBI job to go do that. Like that's what he does to this day, is rescue children and people. Because what I'm going to share with you later is, the human trafficking is something that, because it has no age, no socioeconomic limit or gap, no age limit or gap, a human that is treated as a product can be used and reused over and over again until they die. And so it literally can start when the person is a child all the way into their adulthood, and can happen, labor trafficking is a thing, all the way until they're old. So we're having, in this climate that we have, this political climate that we have, we're having a lot of people who are here illegally or who came legally, where people are trafficking them for labor because they're holding on to their legal documents. And so they're manipulating them. They're here legally, and they're treating them as slaves because they're hanging on to their legal documents. So this has it's so prevalent because it has no limit, literally, how many times you can use a human as a product, how many times you can record that act and rebroadcast it and sell it, right, as a digital product in the black web. Sometimes not so secret black webs. They're getting bolder and bolder and more public and more public. And we'll get into that because that has to do with society and the culture. And so it could be as children as young as infants.
Wow.
All the way until ancianos, like seniors, right? So imagine how many times a day you can use a human from the time that they're an infant to the time that they're old. This is a $150 billion industry. And it's going to take a lot of kingdom people, a lot of kingdom businesses making tens of millions of dollars to bring down a $150 billion industry. So that's what God is gearing me towards, is partnering with kingdom businesses who want to do millions and millions of dollars so that they can give away millions and millions of dollars. Because if we don't unite to bring this down, it's a $150 billion industry today. And it keeps growing. $150 billion is more than every professional sports salary combined, revenue combined.
That's so crazy.
That's mind
They are sophisticated, they are infiltrated, and it's prevalent. And it's not people getting shoved into white vans. These are intricate networks of modeling agencies, of job agencies, of senior agencies, helping seniors, helping young women be models. Just the other day, I want to say last year, there was a news story that broke out that they found 200 young women in a shipping container in Port Miami. So those things happen every day in Miami. We don't hear about them. We hear about the really big ones, the big sensational ones. But we don't hear about, the perpetrators at Disney that had an entire network of pedophiles, including law enforcement, that had been going on for years at Disney. So these are very sophisticated people. And so people like Tim Ballard, people like myself, people like Dr. Maria Tien, who's the founder of Global Innovative Foundation, people who are partnering with, organizations that are specifically focusing on anti-human trafficking, anti-domestic violence, anti-gun, violence. Very interested in working with them, partnering with them. Like you said, Jeanette, giving this a voice. This is happening. Miami-Dade County is the number 2 county in the country for human trafficking. It's happening right here. And if you have a child, know a child, want to have a child. That's everybody. This matters. This is important. So yeah, there's no part of my life, right? There's no part of my life where I don't think about that, how incredibly lucky, blessed, protected, surrounded, purposeful am I, and I say that very humbly, that I got returned to my house. So when I was 5 years old, my nanny, I was in the Dominican Republic, and we had a lady that lived with us, took care of me and my brother, helped us do homework, bathed us, while my mom was at work. My dad was at work, they were already divorced. My mom, I don't know if at that point she had been remarried already. This lady would come to get me at school. I remembered exactly what I was wearing. I was wearing a gingham shirt, which is a black and white, red and white gingham shirt, little denim shorts, patent leather, black Mary Janes with, roughly white socks. I mean, I remember exactly what I was wearing. And I remember when I described that to my mom, because that's the other part, is I had to confirm that this was not just a dream, not just a memory. I'm like, hey mom, you know what? I've never said this to you, but I just need to know if this is something that my brain made up or something that really happened. And when I described what I'm about to share with you to my mom, well, one, we both cried. And two, she confirmed it. She's like, that is the uniform for the school that you used to go to when you were around 5. That's exactly the house that we lived in when you were 5. I know exactly now by the way that you're describing this person, who it is. And that person lived with us for years. So this is the one time that I remember. But they lived with us from the time that I was maybe 2 to the time that I was about 6. So this is the one instance that I remember, but I don't know how many times they did this. So she comes to pick me up from school. I already know I remember feeling like there was something wrong because I always got picked up at the same exact time. And she was late. I remember seeing all the little kids getting picked up. I was the last little kid to get picked up. And it just felt weird because that's not usually our schedule. That's not usually how it happens. And so she comes to get me. She's very agitated. She was kind of abusive, kind of rough with me. And that wasn't her demeanor with me before. The school was in front of a cemetery. Obviously, as a little kid, you're like, ew, that's weird. That's scary. And when you realize, like, oh, the loads of dead people, and you realize what a cemetery is. So it was there, but we always walked around it. And around the sidewalk of the cemetery, there were vendors with, candy and little trinkets and art. And so it was part of the walk home. The experience of the sidewalk was the walk home to walk through all of that. That day, she walked me through the cemetery. So as a little kid, understanding what a cemetery is, and it's Dominican Republic, it's the 80s, like the heat of the Caribbean heating up the mausoleums and the tombs. I mean, there's a very specific smell, and it was just the experience of walking through well, being shoved through, I should say, through a cemetery was horrifying. I finally get through it, and there's a car waiting. And the way I describe it in the book is, it looked like a bruised tomato because it was like an orange red car with rust around it. And when I described that, my mom knew who it was. She's like, "Oh, I know that car." Again, I'm a little kid, so I get shoved into the back seat, and I can't see over the window. There were no seatbelts back there. There were no car seats back then. I'm just sitting in the car in the back seat of the car, and again, no notion of time. So they drive for whatever amount of time. The interaction between them, I don't understand the language that they're speaking. It's not Spanish. I remember him being like a very dark-skinned man with white hair. So an older man. I don't know if it was her husband or her father or some other man. He's driving. She's in the other seat. And they're talking, yelling. They're arguing. Again, driving for some time, we come to a stop and they take me out of the car, and it's like like in the Dominican Republic, there's like, son casa de palito, son casa de madera. that you
Yeah.
can tell, that you can tell that it's a house made of wood, right? Like wood slats, but it's like falling apart. It's like a shack, and it was meant to be green at some point, but you can see the paint falling, scaling, falling off. From the car, we walk in through the front door, and there's no floor. It's a dirt floor, and there's a mattress in front of a TV playing cartoons, and they sit me down in front of that. And I'm looking around, and obviously it's not familiar. I've never been there before. All I see is a wall where there's like a kitchen, and then it's just like open space, and then just the four walls with windows that are closed, because those kind of houses have like shutters in front of the windows, and all of that was closed. He knew my favorite cartoon, so it was Tom and Jerry playing, and it was a weird feeling because it's like something familiar, but you're still scared.
Yeah.
And as an adult, I look back and I'm like, I knew what they were like. They knew what they were doing. It wasn't random, right? And so I'm sitting. I start to cry because at this point I'm very scared. And they hand me like, like out in the country, it's like a mug of metal, como una taza de metal.
Una tacita, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so like for me it's so Dominican because like it's made of metal, so you put it on the fire if you're gonna heat
Yeah.
up chocolate or coffee or whatever. So it's that kind of mug, and there's a liquid inside of it that again doesn't taste familiar. It tastes like medicine, like a medicine-y taste, and then I black out, and then I wake up and I'm still there, and then they give me more medicine. I'm crying, I'm screaming, and so this process of me waking up, crying, understanding where I am, I'm still there. They give me the thing to drink. I fall asleep. For me, in my mind, I want to say it happened about 5 times. It could have been more.
Wow.
Yeah, like I still can't even drink out of those cups anymore. Like when I go to the DR, I can't. I can't even see them.
Of course.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
like
do
it's
those
very
things
triggering.
trigger?
Very triggering. Like I can still, like even now, I get emotional. I can still taste the metal. So then the last time that I wake up, I'm in my house. As a child, the confusing part was I woke up in my house. I was in my jammies. I was showered. It was already late. So I literally got out of my bed and I walked around, and the lights were off. So I thought it was a dream. I thought that it was a nightmare. Fast forward to 2016. I'm in the conference. All of this is going in my head. And I'm like, that's what happened. And so that started a journey of like all the programs I could find, like NLP, Tony Robbins, Landmark, coaching. Like it just, who is Anel? Why is she this way? There's a lot of things that that triggered, that experience triggered. I discovered through those programs, the story that my brain made up, which is how I operated in life for a long time, is I'm all alone. Nobody loves me. And I have to do this. I have to face this scary, lonely world by myself. And that's the work hard, and I got to do it by myself, and ultra independent, and I'll show them. And, like that mode of operating got me a lot of success, whatever that means, right? There was something that I was out to prove, that like, no, I'll show them. Coming from that, I'll show them, is the career and the straight A's when I was in high school, and the scholarships and the honor society. I'll show them, I am enough, but like not like an inauthenticity of I am enough, because I didn't feel like I was enough. I felt like if I did enough, then I would be enough.
Yeah.
And that's an infinite hole. That is a black hole that we just spiral in for a long time when we don't understand where that comes from.
Yeah, that
Where does that,
yeah.
I gotta do more. I'm a doer, right? We've become human doings, not human beings.
Yeah.
And we think that by doing, we'll be enough. We'll be loved. We'll be fill in the blank. Whatever that hole in your heart is, no amount of doing is ever going to do it. There's no amount of money. There's no amount of plaques on your wall. There's no amount of anything external that fills a God-sized hole. I didn't know it was a God-sized hole. That came later, you know, and that really is how I discovered that I was trafficked, right? And again, as an adult, now that I know what I know, you know, the foundation came into my life in 2018, so 2 years prior to me, you know, going into this work, this advocating and activism work of anti-human trafficking. It was about Anel, and it needed to be about Anel.
Yeah.
I needed to wrap my mind around it. You know, again, I had no language for it. I had no reference point for it, and I just had to process that. You know, it's like you go around your entire life thinking you are one thing or one type of person, or you know, like, well, my courage and determination comes from it's innate. It's this thing I was born with. No, it's a reaction.
Yeah.
It was a reaction that my 5-year-old made up, and 5-year-old Anel was running my life, and she made some really crazy decisions along the way. You know, I write about in the book, and it also made me hyper dependent, independent as a child, hyper independent as a child. That marked, and when I was sharing this story with my mom specifically, she's like, there was a shift in my child. There was this beautiful, loving, quiet, introspective, like little girl, soft little girl. And from one day to another, she became like, my nickname was El Limoncito.
Limoncito.
Because she's like, you just became this like sour, like acidic, like repelling,
That is
you
such
know,
a
like viejita peleona, you know, like, and you were like 5, and we thought it was hilarious, but there was something about it that didn't sit right with me. With my mom talking, there was something about it as a mom that I'm like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what caused this shift. I can't put my finger on it. Let's just see what happens. You know, there was really nothing that she could do. She's like, I didn't find bruises on you. There was nothing on you physically that I could be like, oh, well, maybe someone hit her when I was in a rep. Like, there was no physical evidence that she was looking for bruises.
Wow.
You know, she wasn't looking for sexual abuse. She was looking for, maybe she fell, maybe she hit her head. She was looking for something else. She didn't even know what to look for. So as a 5-year-old, 6-year-old child, right? In the moment, I decided my parents don't care. And so, because I was screaming for them and they were nowhere to be found. Obviously, they were not physically there.
Of course.
And so another part of the 5-year-old makeup story is my parents don't care. My parents don't love me. And so I was very angry with my parents. I mean, very angry. Loved them. And at the same time, very distant. I remember my dad, I don't remember how old I was, but I remember, you know, my dad has always lived in the Dominican Republic. When we ended up moving here when I was 8, I just remember like the pain in his voice that he's like, you don't seek me.
Hmm.
You know, like I there was a moment even in my adult life where I had to like put it in my calendar to call my parents, because it wasn't something that would naturally occur to me to reach out to them to see how they were, because I thought they didn't care. So this pivotal moment in my life marked me in such a way where it really like distanced me from my immediate family, including my brother. Until I was like in my mid-30s. And I dedicate my book to my father. There was a moment where, right. So in the acknowledgments, right? So this is halfway through it. To my parents and my brother who unknowingly lost access to their daughter and sister and got her back in her 30s. I love you more than I can express. And through the power of prayer and the Holy Spirit, I get to enjoy knowing my favorite people in the world. I hope this book pieces together my life for you in a way I've never been able to express before. And that we continue to love, heal, and hope, and forgive together, and love each other more than ever. And I had to include that because that's what happened. That's why it's so important for people to seek out their healing. in your healing, you're going to understand a lot of things about yourself that you're like, your worldview is probably not accurate. What you think about yourself in relation to your family, your parents, your siblings is probably skewed because your 4, 5, 6, 6-year-old self, 7, 8-year-old self, your young childhood, something happened that made you have this story about who you are in relation to your family. They don't love me. They don't care. I'm all alone. I have to do this by myself. The world is scary and no one's here to help me. And I think it's very violent, and specifically Caribbean culture, Latin culture, where parents love harshly. Yeah, it's always a threat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Don't
always a
question
threat. There's
anything.
always there's always a threat of physical harm. There's always a threat of kicking you out. There's always a threat of, it's like almost like revenge with the
Yeah.
child. I'm like, well, I didn't ask to be here. You made me. And you treat me like you hate me. So why should I care about you? And it's very toxic. It's a very toxic way of raising other humans to be loving humans. And then later you want me to love you and care for you and be there for you in your old age. It's very strange. It's very weird how you raise me to like you hate me and then now you want me to take care of you. It's just very strange. It's very confusing, really, for a child. So this journey has led me through so many things, and I'm sorry I keep bouncing around because it's so much, right? So that's really like the start of the whole thing, and then the journey has led me to just continually uncover layers of the onion, that is my spirituality. Later in life, I thought I met Prince Charming at a club, of course, like every 19-year-old. And I love it. All the wrong places, right? This guy who was just gorgeous and charming and all the things I never thought that would ever happen to me, and what do they say about things that are too good to be true? It's probably too good to be true. And so I met him when I was 19. We had a very normal, by like society standard, relationship. We did end up breaking up like 8 or 9 months into it. A lot of things happened in the in between, and we ended up getting back together. 2000, I don't remember, but like we had a break of like a couple months, and then we ended up getting back together. We ended up moving in together. So many red flags.
We don't.
You just ignored them.
And I'm like, are they really that red? I mean, they're like orange. I marry the guy because why not? And it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And the craziest part is, again, my self-esteem was so low. And my view of myself was so low that, again, totally ignored all the red flags. I'm like, oh, it's not that bad. It'll get better. I had a bad day. A year and a half after my divorce, I'm sitting in a living room with some girlfriends. One of them happens to be a psychologist. And she's like, you never talk about your ex-husband. I'm like, there's really not much to say about that. And then we just get into it. We start talking about the relationship and things. And she's like, did you know that you were in an abusive, narcissistic relationship with your ex-husband? None of those words made sense to me because I had never heard that before. Didn't know what a narcissist was, didn't know what gaslighting was, didn't know what manipulation was. Like, what? Another journey of retrospect discovery. And so how do you get angry about someone that you're not married to? You know what I mean? Like, I was already divorced. So it's a different kind of anger to understand the level of manipulation, the level of verbal abuse, the level of like just the guilt trips that I got, and just the manipulation alone was a lot. But where did that come from? Where did I think emotional manipulation was normal? In my childhood.
In your childhood. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have a choice. As a kid, I do what you say. because I don't have a choice. And you get lied to as a child. I mean, how many lies did I?
Yeah.
And then cuando viene Christmas, si no te portas bien, vamos a llamar a
Yeah.
and that's already a lie. And it's so simple. She's like, oh, eso es de niño.
But it's such a manipulation.
Yeah.
You're telling my mom about that. I'm like, Mom, but Santa Claus doesn't exist. And then she'll be like, sí, pero cuando era niña no importa. But it's those lies. You're like, so then how many times you lied to me? And now we're doing it because it's so
It's normal to us because that's how we grew up. And it seems so small and it comes so natural. One thing I do that I stopped doing when I'm in the car, my son wants the light on. I'll be like, no, because I'll make up like the dumbest excuse. La policía está ahí. Si ve la luz, te va a agarrar y te va con la policía. And my son immediately, he's like, okay, no light. And
what they used to tell me.
it's funny. Yeah, like it's funny. We laugh about it, but that's a lie, right? And to him, in his world, he's like, oh my God, no.
Oh
Like,
my God, I'm going to go to jail. My mom's going to take me to jail.
yeah,
And it seems laughable to us because we know, obviously, you want to let your kid, your 3-year-old, 5-year-old,
right.
but you're a 5-year-old kid and you live in a society where cops are killing people,
Yeah.
Yeah.
where there's gunmen in my school, in my elementary school. That's no more than we think. Kids are
Oh,
smart.
100%. Yep.
And with
And so,
even worse.
and I'm not saying your kids, but there's kids that walk through metal detectors to go to school.
I sure did in high school.
In elementary school now, because
Yeah.
now elementary schools are getting shut up. So now there's metal detectors in elementary schools. They know what a gun is. They know what a cop is. So me in my car seat, I know what a cop is, and I know what jail is, and I'm gonna go to jail. And that's a whole world and a whole fear in his mind, right? And so, and I'm not saying I'm not saying guilt. I'm just saying like the point of view.
Oh, yeah.
They're sponges and they absorb things and they make up these worlds because their imagination is so vivid because they're so innocent, and they live in that, and then they grow up in that, and that's what's out there.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, that's how I'm out here.
Yeah. No,
Like
100%.
there's things that I'm like, why was I so triggered about X, Y, and Z? And then I start like going backwards, and I'm like, because when I was a kid, my mom said X, Y, and Z, my dad said X, Y, and Z. And so this journey has really, it's been such a whirlwind, and it has been such, it's been so profound for me. And again, I never sought out to have a platform. I didn't even seek out to write a book, and I'll tell you that story in a second. But I can't imagine that God has given me all these experiences for them to die with me.
Hmm.
And I say this very humbly. He's given me this profound wisdom that my mom tells me. She's like, you've had it since you were a kid. Like that is a spiritual gift that you've had since you were little. She's like, you're my only girl, so you were everywhere with me, and you were playing with a toy, sitting at my feet, and like you would turn to me and say things like you were an adult paying attention to this conversation, and then go back to playing a toy. She's like, and it was a weird experience because I didn't have that with your brother, and it was just like you've had this like profound insight and point of view to the world. And as I've gotten more experiences and grown up, obviously I've been here on this earth for 4 years now, it's just gotten sharper. And the closer I get to God, the more he downloads in this, like, I can't imagine this is just for me to be here with my dog about it, right? So, and so that conversation with my friend about my marriage really sparked a whole thing about, mental abuse, mental manipulation, domestic violence is more than just being hit. And a lot of people don't understand that. A bruise, and I'm not going to show you my arm. So I was in the hospital recently. I'm okay. I was so dehydrated because it was late in the day that this lady kept poking, trying to find a vein. And I have bruises on both of my hands and on both of my arms. Now, this was 2 weeks ago, and the bruises are still here. And they still hurt, right? And so I'm framing this in a way where people don't understand mental and physical abuse has bruises that you can't see. It's not just the black eye. It's not just the broken. Those are very serious situations And it breaks my heart every time I hear that people that I love have gone through it. Now, my ex-husband is a lot of things, but he never actually hit me. He raised his hand at me a couple times, and that was interesting. And the first time, I didn't even notice it.
Wow.
The first time, it took me like it was like such a delayed reaction. I'm like, I was in such disbelief that this man, who I had put on a pedestal, do that. And then it happened again. And on the third time, I stepped up to him and I was like, next time you do, there won't be a next time. There won't be a next time. At that point, it had been a few years and I had gotten a little bit of courage. And I'm like, and that was like the first day that I stood up for myself. And I remember like just the disbelief that this was my relationship with the man who I vowed to be with forever. And the conflict for me of leaving my ex-husband was I met my vows. And again, back into the doing, like, I'm gonna be the first one that doesn't get divorced. Like it was just like, like I had this digging in my heels of like, I'm not gonna be the one, right? And it got to the point where that was silly. It got to the point where digging my heels to that was ridiculous. And I'm like, you know what? I've asked you to change. We've gone to counseling. I've done all the things. If I stay in this marriage, I'm either going to kill you, I'm either going to end in a hospital ward, or I'm going to kill myself. And none of those three options are viable. And so I gotta go. And a lot of things have happened in between that. But the decision was, I'm like, I can't imagine that this good God that I believe in is going to like force me to stay here. Like I can't, that doesn't fit in my mind.
Yeah.
And I went back to the Bible and looked at what he says about divorce, what's in the Bible about divorce. And I'm like, well, God, I don't know. At that point in my spiritual journey, I'm like, I hear you, but this doesn't feel right. And I can't imagine you want me to stay here. And so I'm like, if you want me to stay here, want me to go, I need you to confirm it. Like, I need you to just like send me a billboard will do, a person, anything. Like,
Another red flag.
send me. And send me confirmation. I remember, like when you have a nightmare and like you wake up and you're like just like startled and you're like sweating and you're breathing hard. I remember waking up like that. It had to be a weekend morning because we were both very calmly waking up. And I remember looking to the side of the bed and first of all, I felt nothing, which is scary in a relationship. Like you feel nothing for that person.
Yeah,
It wasn't hate, it wasn't disdain, but it definitely wasn't love. And then again, I wake up like, am I making things up? Am I going crazy? The third time, I'm like, okay. Third time. Okay. And even from there, from that moment to leaving, took another 2 years.
Wow.
Because I'm like, no, let's counseling. Let's try it. I mean, I just wanted to squeeze the blood out of the rock on this one. And to be honest, I'm at peace with the fact that I did it that way. I'm at peace with the fact that like, I really tried. Because when we did separate, there was, did I leave too fast? We had only been married at that point, I think 3 years. We had been together. The relationship itself was 10 years. But we were met when we were 19. So, we took some time. We didn't want to get married right away, college, etc. Got engaged and married when I was 25. And this was now, I want to say we separated. It had to have been maybe like 26 or 27 when we separated. Because our divorce was finalized and I was 29. I was 29 turning 30. And so 9 months into the marriage, back to the lying, I found out that he had lied to me from the day one. The first thing that came out of his mouth when I met him at the club was a lie. And at the time, wasn't a huge lie, but the lie perpetuated for 7 years. I'm like, you didn't think of like telling me, hey, by the way, this was not what happened, before we get married, let's clear the air. Wow. And then I couldn't trust anything like that said. Like, how do I believe a liar? You've been lying to me for 7 years. You've been lying to me about everything. And I just could not let it go. And so So that chapter, and then he took all my money. Then I became homeless. And so that was a whole nother journey. And, the day that he left the house was the day that I asked him for the divorce. I had asked him for the divorce prior to. I'm like, look, if you don't change, we gotta get divorced. And he's like, well, don't say that word to me again. I'm like, well, in order for me to not say this again to you, I need to see real change. And then 2 years went by with no change. And I'm like, it's time. We've beat the life out of this relationship. There's nothing here left. We gotta go. We had our conversation and I went to go walk the dog to clear my head. Very charged conversation, very long conversation. And I come back and all his stuff is packed. His car's full of his stuff. His stuff is packed. I'm like, I know I asked you for a divorce, but like there's a lot of things that we have to talk about, like money and this apartment and all the bills. He's like, oh no. You wanted a divorce? This is us getting a divorce. And he left.
Wow.
And I'm like, didn't tell me where he was going. Didn't tell me anything. He just left. And so it didn't even occur to me until the next day to go to the bank. He worked in finance. And before, like right before we got married, I want to say, he had convinced me, because the entire time that we were together, I'm like, no, separate bank accounts. I've seen this. I know how this goes. I want to have my own bank account. We'll have one together, but I want to. No. He finally convinced me, broke me down, for us to have one bank account, one joint bank account. And then he's like, no, I want to start learning about investing. And, he opened like an E-Trade account. But I need you to sign so that, the money can be drafted out of the account and we're both in consent. Yeah, okay, whatever. So I had no access to the E-Trade account, and he was siphoning money out of our main account. I gave him permission. $98,000.
Oh my gosh.
Life savings for the future, gone. So when I get to the bank, there's $1,000 left. That's obviously not even enough to cover rent. And I just, like those moments like in the movies where you're in the scene and then they like flash forward. It was like that. I'm like, I can't pay this rent. I have no money. I don't know what's gonna happen. And so this is the moment where I go back home and I'm in such a desperate place, where I remember like getting on my knees, being prostrate, forehead to the ground, crying my soul out and asking God to manifest. Like that was the moment. That was a moment where I was like, you know what? I don't know if you're real, because I know to this moment I've been very wishy-washy. But if you are real, I need you to show up. Like I just need you to, like, in a very convincing, no doubt in my mind that you exist way, to show up. I called a friend, told her what happened. No money. I don't know what we're gonna. She said, "No worry, we're gonna put everything in a storage. And if you have to come and sleep on my couch for however long." I'm like, okay. That was like on a Thursday, and on Saturday, she's like, "Hey, I'm having dinner with a friend. I'm having dinner with a friend of my boyfriend's, and she just inherited a unit in Hollandale, and it needs to be renovated. It happens to be furnished." I thought, if you were willing to, not charge her a fee, like a design fee, maybe I ask her to like let you stay there for like a little. I'm like, done. Like, we're shot.
Wow.
I mean, we lose nothing by asking. By all means, ask her. I will waive my design fee 100% if she lets me sit. Jeanette, Cynthia, like a complete stranger. That Sunday, the following day, 24 hours after that phone call, that lady handed me the keys to her house.
That was God.
Wow,
Like,
yeah.
to this day, have no explanation how that happened. Now, her name is Maria, was Maria. Maria inherited that unit, and I do believe she's an angel, because so she was undergoing chemo in Boston, and she would come to the apartment. This was like her parents' apartment, to be in the warm weather. Cancer patients report feeling better. The symptoms are milder in warm weather versus, Boston weather. And so she's like, listen, I just had the treatment. I was just here for a couple of weeks. I'm going back up to Boston. I'll be back in about 4 months. Is that enough time for you? I'm like, of course, whatever you want. And she's like, and even if you need to stay longer, we'll just put you in the den and then we'll be here for however long we'll be here and then we'll leave. No problem. So things like that, like the generosity of strangers, angels that God has sent me to this day. They keep sending me angels. And Maria did pass away. And I say her name and I tell her that story because she will live on as long as I keep saying that story. And I think it's so important to remember her because again, she didn't know me. And I got to know her in the process. We did not finish the renovation. Unfortunately, her children were not very good to their mother, but she marked me. And I'm like, the generosity that I can provide to strangers matters.
Wow.
And so it was a moment that marked me. And so I was able to be at her house. I had a job at that time and be able to save. And, the craziness of being in that situation, I saw 30 properties that fell through and I'm like, okay, God, whichever one you want for me, make it flow. And yeah, my landlord, again, the generosity of strangers. My landlord at that time was renovating a unit for himself. The realtor, the unit that I was going for fell through. It's like, hey, I have a friend who's renovating a unit, same building, different side. Would you be interested in seeing it? I'm like, I have nowhere to live. I gotta see everything. Show me the thing, right? So the building, medio viejito, medio feito, right? I'm like, well, I'm not gonna live in the common areas. Let me see the apartment. And you walk into a place and you're like, you just feel the presence and the peace of God. And that's how it was, beautiful light, wall to wall windows. It was the top floor of the building, but it's an old building, so like the fourth floor. But still, all you saw was like the top of the trees. So even though it was like a parking lot, I didn't see the parking lot. I just saw the top of the trees in the sky from that window. And I'm like, I feel the peace of God here. And I moved in with my clothes and a blow up mattress, and I lived there like that for 8 months. And in situations like that is where you find out what you're made of.
Yeah.
You find out what's inside of you. You find out really like your strength and the hilarious part, I'm like, if I would have been born in Dominican Republic in the 80s, at that time, third world country where there's no electricity and half the time there's no water and half the time there's no nothing, I would have been able to like really navigate through that, in the way that I did, in the peace that I did. Because I'm like, no money for light bill? No problem. I got candles.
Yeah.
Open up a window, read a book.
La vela.
Yeah. Like una lámpara de gas.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've done this before. This is easy. And so, obviously it's funny now. It's not funny when you're going through it, but God is so gracious that he factors all of it in. Even going through the campo y pasando trabajo and taking a shower with cold water at 6 a.m. outside and, eating things on a barbecue and factor all that in. He's like, I prepared you to survive any situation.
Beautiful.
I could literally, and let me tell you, last year I lost everything. Another crazy situation with a business partner that went sour in my business, lost everything. The beautiful apartment, the bank account, the prestige, down the drain last year. Anything can happen anytime. So knowing that I've gone through these situations, I'm like, I could do anything. You could drop me in the middle of nothing. I'm gonna live. It won't be comfortable,
Let me
but
tell
I'm gonna
you
get through it.
that it's so inspiring. And I know you probably heard this multiple times of the strong women that you are and that you've become. But you hold so much power within you that sometimes us, right? For the little things, we feel like our life is useless, we're ungrateful, we drown in a cup of water. But hearing your story and not just what happened last year, what happened with your ex-husband, being homeless, what you went through as a child to build you to the women that you are today. I'm here just as you're sharing your story. And first, I'm just like if I'm living with you step by step, I vision everything that you went through and to me, it's like it really touches me, you know, because you showed us today that no matter what we go through, we can push through. We were made for this, you know, and that life is going to keep happening to you. And one thing also that I admire is that you hold on to God's promise, even when you are at your lowest.
Yes.
And that is really hard, you know, because we tend to have our faith rooted when things are going great.
Mm-hmm.
Things are
That's
collapsing.
easy.
Yes,
Yeah.
we tend to say, "Why God? Why me? Like, why me? Oh, so I'm your child, and you keep doing all this to me." But the way that you took it of shifting that, it was powerful because you could use your story and be like, "Well, this happened to me, this," and I can keep going on with the list. I'm sure you have so much more to share, right? And be like, "I'm gonna be a bad person. I'm not gonna care about humans. I'm not gonna care about anyone. I'm just gonna take care of myself," right? And like having that perspective, but you took it in a different direction. And that has power.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your story and being vulnerable on our platform. Like, your story was just so powerful. So thank you so much for sharing. And I'm so sorry that that happened to you as a child, because no child should experience what you experienced. But the way you came out of that, like Jeanette said, I am honored by the way you came out of that. Thank you so much. And you know, culturally, we're taught to always like protect the family name, right? And shove everything under like the table, right? Eso no se dice. You don't talk about that. So I want to know the moment that how did you begin to break free from that generational silence, right? Because that's another taboo that we have to break, right? That silence. So when did you like realize like, no, I have to break that generational silence and start speaking up?
Yeah, this is well, thank you ladies for your beautiful and kind words, and it means so much to me because it does take a lot of courage. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, superwoman. And I now own that power. But in the beginning, it was very scary because of what you just said, Cynthia. What are people going to think? What are my parents going to think? How is this going to affect them? They're going to think that they're not good parents. Like all the questions, all the things, right? And um through the programs that I went through, like, Tony Robbins, Landmark, personal coaching that I received, I started to understand that it was everything is in conversation. And so I started to be able to come from a place of grace for them and for myself, where it's like I was a kid, I didn't know what happened to me. It wasn't my fault. They were away doing what they knew how to do to protect me as their child and to provide for me. They were working or wherever they were. They were not available. But it wasn't because they didn't care. They were big parents. They entrusted someone. That person broke their trust. That person broke my trust. But again, I don't know what they were under. Because what if that guy was trafficking her in that situation? Right? So just coming from a place of grace, of like, it happened the way it happened because that's the way it needed to happen. And then the conversation with my parents was really difficult. I mean, I've had to have several, even now, several conversations with them. Like, listen, this is what happened, and this is my perspective of what happened. I'm not blaming you for what happened. This is also not your fault, but it's what happened. And I know it's hurtful for you as my parent because you're responsible for me. Your job is to protect me. And I get it. And to you as a parent, it feels like a failure, but I don't see it as a failure towards you. And so I had to really have that conversation with my parents. And I had to get to a point of forgiveness for my parents where I met that. So that's where the healing comes in. So the book is a true life story of forgiveness, healing, and hope. It's three things that stack on top of each other. You can't get to healing if you don't forgive. And you can't have hope if you're not healed.
Oof.
So they all stack on top of each other, and forgiveness is the number one thing. Forgiveness for everyone involved. I talk about in the book where I learned the method where you write letters and you as colorful as they need to be. You get it all out of you. As long as it lives in you, the angers, and you put it all on paper. Some letters took 5 pages. Some took, and you read them and read until the last line is, I forgive you and I release you. Wow. And you read the letter over and over again until when you say, I forgive you and I release you, and you mean it. You really mean it. And some letters took 6 months, 7 months, because the anger is real. Someone took something. So this thing that happened to me took years of my life, of being with my parents, of being a sister to my brother, of being able to connect with other people, with myself. So, it was really a profound, pivotal moment of my life. And Jeanette, like you said, back to this profound wisdom, I know. It's remarkable. My human part is like, are you really?
And your
Gonna
humor,
all these people?
gosh, it's just beautiful. Like, just to see the humor, the smile. Like, I know that you have the pain and you've turned pain into purpose. And like to see that, like, I get goosebumps. Like, I'm here that I'm like, I don't even notice how long it's been already that we're talking, right?
I know.
I'm so into like who you are, who you've been, who you're becoming, that's beautiful to see because we are so used to sharing like the glimpse of our hype, of our life, of the good stuff, of the growth, of the alignment, but very few people share that story and how you took that story and you turned it into purpose. And that's what's powerful. And I haven't even read your book yet. I can't wait to get my hands on it because I know it's gonna
Hey.
that I know your story is gonna be even more impactful. And I'm gonna see it now from your vision and your perspective. Wow. Just like
Thank you.
I
And
know
I'm
it's
excited
beautiful.
to continue sharing it, and thank you for that. I too suffer from, insecurity, and I was on another program this week, and I'm like, before I logged in, I was like, oh my God, why would they even care? You know what I mean? Like I still have to like hype myself up to be on stage and to say the things, and to recount the story. So thank you. What you both have said to me, and the feedback that you've given me, I put it in my heart, because it is important for the story to be shared.
it is
Yeah.
important.
And so I'm thankful, and also for a long time I was very fearful of being the vessel to share the story, because you know um even in the humor of me sharing the story, in the background is I am going up against $150 billion industry.
Yeah.
And like I said, they're sophisticated. And my mom told me that. They're like, she's like, what you're doing is dangerous. And I've thought about it that way. I thought I was just sharing my story. She's like, what you're doing is dangerous. And just like, I mean, I'm not comparing myself to Jesus, but just like Jesus told the truth, when people tell the truth, it becomes dangerous to what to the lie that they're becoming.
Yeah. That's
Right.
Yeah.
So as storytellers and truth tellers, and of course, the ultimate truth being Jesus and his kingdom, we are doing dangerous work. And we need to know that, and that's the truth. And you need to be okay with that.
Yeah. You're also breaking generational cycles. So I
Yeah.
really hope that you know that what you've done, the moment that you decided to speak up and share your story was the moment that you became a generational cycle breaker. So which is, like you said, very powerful, right? You're up against, this billion-dollar industry, right? But what you're doing and the work that you're putting in is just powerful. Like, I have so many, like, respect for you. It's just amazing what you're doing.
Thank you. And you asked me a question, I didn't answer it, and I apologize. It just came to me. The moment, the actual moment was I was telling my mom the story, and I recounted in the book actually when I started to tell my mom the story, and she said me too when my mom said me too, and then it sparked the curiosity of like, wait, what? And then she started telling me her stories, and I'm just like, tell me about your mom, grandma. And I'm like, this is a pattern, and I'm the last one. And before it was a thing, because it wasn't a movie yet, it ends with me. Right?
Oof.
And I'm like, oh no, this ends with me. Because and I was already divorced, when this went. And I'm like, I am so blessed. And I say that in a double edge. I am so blessed that I don't have children yet. Because as someone turning 40, as a woman turning 40 this year, I think about that all the time. I've been thinking about it since 30. But how blessed am I that, one, I'm not tied to that man with children.
There you go.
Yeah.
That man is not those children's father, because it's an influence. And I get to do this work before my children arrive so that I can raise them differently and with more awareness and with more spiritual, like with more God-centered. And am I gonna throw a chancleta at some point? Probably. I don't know.
That's in
Let's
us.
hope that I don't. But it's genetic or something. I don't
It
know.
might slip.
They won't do it again.
And so, but I'm so thankful that I don't have children yet, because I get to work on this. And ese mando of being the one is so heavy. It's heavy.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
And yeah, and so, and it never ends, because it's like, we'll have this conversation and I'll think about something and I'm like, oh, let's dig into that, and I think the more work you do and the deeper you get into yourself about who you are, why you are the way you are, experiences that you've been through, you learn a new thing about your family. You just keep going. It's a never ending work, and you have to be willing to take that on, because it's a lot. And so the book is actually a 3-part book, and I'm working on the second edition of this first part, because I realized that I said a lot of things in the introduction that I don't actually talk about because they come into later chapters. And so in that rewriting, I've come to a realization of a lot of things too. I wrote the book. The book was finished in February of 24, and I published it in February of 25. And so a lot of things happened last year that I grew through and from, that need to be added into this. So very exciting. So still read it. I still encourage everyone to read it. There's a lot of really good stuff. Still can't believe I wrote a book. You know?
I know. I can't wait
Yeah.
to get my hands on it and read it. Oh my God. Thank you so much. I mean, we can be talking here for
No, it's been over an hour, and we definitely have to get together in person.
yes.
And the last thing that I'll say is, every book sold. When I met Dr. Etienne, I had already had the vision of, okay, God told me to write this book. I don't know what I'm doing. But I knew that I wanted to partner with an organization, and I wanted to create something that would generate revenue that I could donate, more than a tithing, more than, I just wanted to create a vehicle that even after me, it would generate income for this cause. And so 30% of the proceeds of every book go back to the foundation to support survivors.
Beautiful.
And so thank you for your contribution to helping survivors with every purchase of your book.
Amazing. Yeah, that's beautiful. Oh my gosh. We have to wrap it up with our last segment. I know, but we will meet in person soon, but we are going to wrap it up with our last segment, our Tia Chismosa. And we ask our guests this question all the time, but with the weight of everything you've walked us through, we want to reframe it just a little.
If your tia Chismosa knew the truth of what you endure, what would she say about the mujer you become today? And what will you say to yourself? Like, how do you think
What I would say, well, my tia Chismosa would be, first of all, I think a little angry at the fact that I didn't tell her, right? I know it's funny how I relate to all my aunts, obviously as second moms, right? She would be upset that I didn't tell her. And knowing what I know now, is I think that it would be freeing for her then be able to share her story with me, because I feel like women in general, we go through so many things that we don't talk about. And I feel like it just takes an opening, a cracking of a door, cracking of a window of someone for us to be like, oh, it's not just me. And now I can share. And that was another facet of as to why I started when I would share bits and pieces one-on-one with people, men and women, the things men have told me that they've gone through, that they would probably never say to anyone else, only because I shared what I shared. When I speak on stage, a handful of men are waiting for me in the back to share their, which is incredible. And as much as I love the women sharing, that is such a win for me. Like that's the win, is that men are also opening up. And I think it's part of the time and society that we live. And then what would I say to myself? I'm so proud of you. So I started doing inner child healing earlier this year with coaching that I'm doing with an incredible coach, Ryan Zofe, shameless plug. And I changed my cover of my phone to my baby photo. That's me when I was turning 1.
So cute.
And so I talked to her. I talked to baby Anel, and I'm just so proud of her. You know, and she's a tough cook, but she's also a very soft woman. She's learned to be a soft woman through all of the toughness that she's had to go through, and the toughness she's had to, somehow she's still a soft woman. And I think that's the triumph, and that's the win. So I'm very proud of
That was beautiful. I love that.
I love that. And of course, before we wrap up, is there any exciting projects coming up, any events, or just ways that our audience can connect with you? I know you said you have 2 more books that are coming out, so if you can just share any projects.
Yeah, so as far as projects, well, the second edition of Gracefully Broken, Beautifully Healed Forgiveness as book 1 in the Forgiveness, Healing, and Hope series. And I want to do a live event in June. So I'll keep you posted. Not sure if it's going to be, I would love for it to be live. It might be virtual, but I would love to invite both of you ladies as my guests. We're going to be talking all things, forgiveness, healing, and hope. And as far as exciting projects, I'm always open. And things like these beautiful, impromptu meetings that happen where someone will ask me to be on a podcast or be on their show or happen weekly. So I'll keep you posted as to anything that's new and exciting. And then, of course, everyone can connect with me. My website is my name, so aneldecastro.com. Made it super, super easy. If you'd like to connect with me, I also offer coaching. And then the coaching programs are on the website. And if anything that, I said resonated with you, I'd love to work with you through all of the forgiveness, healing, and hope that you need in your life as well.
That's beautiful now. And we're going to make sure to place all of that in the show notes as well, or
Yes.
anything that you didn't share with us. Feel free to share it and we'll make sure to add it. Thank you, Anel, for being a voice for so many who still feel voiceless. Your story reminds us that healing is not linear, but it is possible. You are proof that what breaks us doesn't have to define us, and that faith, community, and courage can rewrite the narrative. So it's been a pleasure and an honor to have you here. Really, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And for those listening, this is your reminder you are not alone. Your story matters. And speaking your truth can be the first step towards freedom. Tag us, tag a friend, or share your thoughts after this episode. If this conversation is something that just touched you deep, don't keep it to yourself. Start the dialogue. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, y como siempre, we'll see you next time on Taboo Talk Latina Edition, where we keep breaking cycles, breaking silence, and breaking those taboos. Thank you, chicas.
Gracias. Las quiero mucho.